In the fading glow of dawn, the world remained silent, almost as if it knew that today's revelations would shatter the familiar boundaries of history. A shadow lingers in the mind, whispering of secrets buried beneath layers of time, secrets that, if uncovered, could rewrite the very fabric of human achievement. Before Yuri Gagarin, before the world watched a single Russian astronaut circle the Earth, there was another chapter, hidden, suppressed, obscured by the Iron Curtain of official history. The early days of the Soviet space program are painted in bold strokes of ambition, driven by a relentless desire to outpace America's nascent space endeavors. But beneath that bold facade, there were whispers, faint, haunting whispers, of clandestine missions that never saw the light of day. Rumors echo of a time when Soviet engineers and scientists dared to dream bigger than what they allowed their own government to admit. The secret launches, those silent, unpublicized tests, hinted at a brutal race not just for technological supremacy, but for absolute control over the ultimate frontier: human spaceflight. Initial declassified documents only scratch the surface. They reveal a series of mysterious test flights and experimental capsules, discarded, forgotten, or dismissed by the public eye. Yet, in shadowy archives abroad, further evidence emerges. Flight logs that don't match the official timeline, personnel records that mysteriously vanish, and radio transmissions intercepted by Western agencies whisper of missions shrouded in secrecy. What was being tested? Who was on board? And how close did the Soviets come to setting foot on the stars before their official pioneers like Gagarin took that historic leap? The early Soviet space ambitions were no less than audacious. Long before Gagarin's orbit, there were covert projects, secret missions whose purpose seemed layered in complexity. Behind the Iron Curtain, a clandestine effort was underway, driven by a desire to beat the West, to demonstrate Soviet technological supremacy. But some missions appeared to have been more than just technological tests. They were the testing of a new belief, that humans could survive and thrive in the void of space. Evidence points toward these attempts being classified not just as scientific experiments but as instruments of political power. One such mission, cloaked in secrecy, involved a spacecraft launched in the late 1950s. Eyewitnesses and defectors describe a vessel not unlike what would later be used in Gagarin's historic flight, but with even more advanced, and now, seemingly, experimental, capabilities. These missions were conducted in absolute silence, away from official scrutiny, often under the guise of unmanned tests. Yet, some of these unmanned vessels carried human pilots who vanished into the void, only to become ghost stories bouncing across the borders, missing, presumed dead, part of an unfinished Soviet chapter. What secrets did these missions hold? Did they carry life to the abyss, testing the resilience of human bodies in space? Or was their purpose more sinister, a means of control, a way to push the boundaries of human endurance before revealing the truth to the world? The soundless launches, the mysterious landings, and the stories whispered among old cosmonauts suggest that the Soviet Union was not merely rushing to beat the Americans but was locked in a clandestine game of survival, dominance, and secrecy. The consequences are staggering. If these missions were true, and all the evidence points toward some truth, then Gagarin's historic flight was not the first human launch. It was merely the first to be officially recognized. Somewhere in the shadows, pioneering cosmonauts had already ventured into space, paying the price for the Soviet Union's relentless pursuit of supremacy. And what of these unacknowledged pioneers? Were they sacrificed in the dark, their stories erased from the history books to protect the secret mission? An unspoken war in the race to the stars? How close did they get to making real history during those silent launches? The answer is not definite, But the clues suggest a near miss, missions that reached the edge of the unknown, only to fall back into obscurity. Perhaps some of these secret cosmonauts were trapped forever in the memory of the void. Or, worse, lost forever in the depths of space, devoured by the silence they dared to breach. As we peel back the layers of time and secrecy, one thing becomes clear. The universe of human achievement is darker and more tangled than the official stories reveal. The silent launches, those unknown voyages, are not just stories of ambition but echoes of a hidden war fought in the shadows of history's grand tapestry. What were they trying to hide? What cosmic secrets did the Soviets attempt to claim before Gagarin's name immortalized the moment? The question lingers, unresolved, in the cold emptiness of space and the darkness of history. And as the first chapter closes, a new one begins. One where the truth about those silent missions may finally surface from the void, challenging everything we thought we knew about human space exploration and the darkness that lurked behind the curtain of the Soviet space race. In the shadows of history's grand theater, where the spotlight often shines brightest on the visible actors, lie stories left untold, histories erased or hidden away, quiet heroes sacrificed to the machinations of political power and clandestine agendas. Among them, the cosmonauts whose names never appeared on medals or history books, whose missions were buried beneath layers of secrecy, their sacrifices masked behind a veil of silence, yet whose stories are etched into the silent spaces between reality and cover-up. Imagine a cold, sterile control room, flickering monitors glowing softly in the dark. Inside, the echo of hurried footsteps, whispers of officials navigating complex political webs, all while a young woman, Elena, sifts through declassified documents, her fingers trembling as she uncovers reports of mysterious incidents, unresolved crashes, and disappearances. These are the stories that never made it to the public eye, missions that vanished into oblivion, lives that became ghostly legends whispered in clandestine meetings. Her journey emblematic of a wider truth, the existence of heroes whose sacrifices were sacrificed on the altar of geopolitical convenience. One such story leads us far beyond the Arctic bounds, where a Soviet cosmonaut named Ivan Vasilyev set out on a mission that seemed routine at first, an exploratory flight into the upper atmosphere. But then, the radio communication abruptly cut out, replaced by unsettling silence. An investigation ensued, but official reports claimed equipment malfunction, yet whispers persist, hinting at something more sinister. Rumors speak of a clandestine recovery mission, of crews dispatched in secrecy to retrieve what was lost. Did Ivan Vasilyev's ship crash into the icy void, or was he part of something far more intricate, a game of shadows where his own government sought to suppress the truth? Further stories wade into the mysterious, whispers of a hidden underground vault beneath Baikonur, where remains of unacknowledged launches are stored, along with bodies of those who never returned. These men and women, dubbed the unseen heroes, were sacrificed not in the way of glorious historic missions, but to keep powerful interests cloaked in darkness. Their deaths concealed to protect geopolitical ambitions, their sacrifices buried beneath layers of anodized secrecy. These stories, long suppressed, speak of brave souls who faced mortal danger on missions kept secret from the world's gaze, each with a personal story of courage facing the void, agonizing goodbyes echoing in silent memories. A specific incident emerges, the disappearance of a spacecraft in the late 1960s. Officially, it was an anomaly, a technical failure, a tragic accident. Yet, whistleblowers suggest it was a deliberate cover-up. The crew had been tasked with a stealth mission, an attempt to explore possibilities beyond what was publicly known, probing the unknown for political leverage. Their ship vanished in the darkness of space, their families left with voids where answers should have been. The government, in its relentless desire to maintain control, sealed the case files tight, erasing all traces of their brave but doomed journey. And what about the emotional toll? Among these unsung heroes are personal stories. Families who never received closure, wives and children left with only memories and silence. Their loved ones, told their husbands and wives, had perished in accidents or failed missions, unaware that in some cases, these missions had been purposely concealed. The emotional scars run deep, buried beneath official narratives, while the real stories shimmer in whispers, stories of hope, fear, sacrifice, and betrayal. Could these fallen heroes have changed the course of history if the truth had been revealed? It's a haunting question, one that lingers in the dark corners of this mysterious world. What if Vasiliev had returned? What knowledge might he have carried that could have altered Cold War diplomacy? Would the secret missions have accelerated humanity's reach into space, or been forever lost to the shadows of political expediency? The silence that envelops these stories prevents us from knowing, but leaves us yearning for truth. Truth that might have reshaped understanding of our past, or even illuminated the future. In this world of shadowy missions and silent sacrifices, the narrative persists. Every uncovered document, every whispered rumor, plants seeds of doubt and curiosity. Who were these heroes? What did they endure, and what was sacrificed in that clandestine space between us and the truth? These are questions that echo through the dark corridors of history, daring us to look beyond the lies, to seek the stories buried beneath layers of concealment. As Elena closes her folder, her eyes fixed on the darkness outside her window, she feels the weight of unspoken stories pressing against her chest. Somewhere out there, in the depths of space, or hidden beneath layers of government cover-ups, their voices wait to be heard, silent witnesses to a secret history of courage and tragedy. Perhaps one day, the truth will break free from the shadows, and these now forgotten heroes will finally be recognized for the sacrifices they made, not just for their countries, but for humanity's unyielding quest to reach beyond. And when that day comes, the echoes of bravery, lost in the silence, will resound loudly, reminding us that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who are never acknowledged, whose stories are veiled in shadows, yet forever etched into the fabric of the universe's deepest secrets. In that silence, their spirits linger, waiting for the day their stories can be told, truths that could have changed everything, if only we dared to unveil them. The room was cold, silent, and filled with an oppressive weight of secrets too dangerous to reveal. Behind thick walls meant to conceal, stories of loss and sacrifice blurred into shadows, their stories hidden beneath layers of political strategy and national pride. The Soviet leadership sat in battered silence, their faces taut with the weight of decisions made in the quiet hours of the night, decisions that would define their legacy and perhaps the fate of their race for mastery of the stars. The universe was a battleground of the unseen, where every step forward in space exploration was a gamble, and every loss a threat to national prestige. The space race had become more than a pursuit of knowledge. It was a test of sovereignty, of technological prowess, of ideological supremacy. The Soviet Union, under constant pressure to outpace the West, was prepared to do anything, hide what needed hiding, manipulate what needed manipulation, and sacrifice what needed sacrifice, to maintain their edge. As the world watched, eager for breakthroughs, the Soviet leaders understood that even a hint of failure in their bold endeavors could unravel decades of propaganda efforts, destabilize their carefully curated image of invincibility. The deaths, the miscalculations, the accidents, they all seemed like cracks in a meticulously built facade. And so, they devised a plan to keep these stories buried deep beneath layers of secrecy, knowing that the unraveling of such truths would threaten everything they fought to maintain. In the hushed political chambers, the reasoning was clear: public acknowledgement of tragedy could be perceived as a weakness, a flaw in their technological facade that the West would eagerly exploit. That could lead to international humiliation, internal chaos, and a loss of faith in their leadership. To the Kremlin, it was not just about protecting reputations. It was about controlling the narrative that kept their nation unified, their power unquestioned. But imagine the lengths to which they would go. Controlling information, censoring media reports, silencing witnesses, fabricating cover stories. These were just the beginning. High-ranking officials knew that even the smallest leak could ignite a firestorm, exposing the fragile underbelly of their space ambitions. They had to maintain absolute silence, so that their knowledge of these deaths would be contained within a vault of silence that no outsider could penetrate. They deployed specialists, experts trained in obfuscation and deception, who tirelessly crafted stories that would be circulated as official accounts. In whispered meetings, they discussed how to frame accidents as equipment failures or unforeseen malfunctions, plausible deniability that would keep the world from suspecting the deeper truths lurking beneath reports of faulty machinery or bad weather. But perhaps the greatest concern was the international reputation, the delicate balance of perception and reality. The Soviets understood that the space race was as much a psychological game as a technological one. Every failure hinted at weakness. Every crash or death could be exploited by the West to assert dominance. To them, their achievements had to shine brighter than their failures, and they were prepared to weave lies and amass cover stories to ensure that no cracks could be seen from afar. And what about the human cost? Behind the polished images of astronauts and technicians, there was a darker reality: lives lost in silence, their stories erased for reasons of state. These were sacrifices made so that history could remember only the success, to preserve the narrative of Soviet superiority in the cosmos. The truth was too dangerous, too disruptive. Yet, beneath this elaborate web of deception, a quiet doubt persisted among some, those who knew the truth but dared not speak. For them, the moral weight was unbearable. Knowing the real stories of tragedy, yet participating in the concealment, was a burden that haunted their every step. But in a system where loyalty was paramount, and betrayal could mean the end, silence was the only option. Back in the shadows of the Kremlin, the leaders pondered the game they were playing, a game of pretense and suppression, of secrets kept well below the surface. The stakes couldn't be higher. The Soviet Union's reputation was a flame that needed constant fuel, lest it flicker and die. And so, the cover-up began, an intricate ballet of lies designed to mask the human toll and safeguard their future ambitions. Meanwhile, outside these secret chambers, the world remained unaware, their eyes fixed on the stars, celebrating successes without knowing what shadows lurked behind the shining veneer. The truth was a distant echo, one that dared to threaten the carefully curated myth of Soviet space achievement. And as the story unfolds, one must ask, what lengths are a nation prepared to go to in order to hide its darkest secrets? When the cost of truth is too high, the silence becomes their most potent weapon, shrouding what truly happened in a darkness more profound than the void of space itself. In the shadowed depths of a remote desert, beneath layers of secrecy and silence, a clandestine operation was unfolding. The sky above shimmered with the faint glow of stars, indifferent to the human pursuits lurking beneath its vast, indifferent canopy. It was here, where normal eyes saw only sand and night, that a series of clandestine spacecraft had been hidden, machines born not in public factories or the light of media broadcasts, but in secret hangars cloaked in shadows, known only to a select few. Inside one such hangar, the air was thick with anticipation and the scent of cold metal. Unseen by any but those who knew where to look, engineers and scientists toiled through the long hours under flickering lights. The hush of detailed work, the faint hum of machinery, was punctuated only by the occasional pressurized hiss of a system calibrating or a door sealing. These crafts were unlike anything the world had known, sleek, advanced beyond current understanding, their designs whispering of innovations that bordered on the unbelievable. The discovery of these ships had been a shock. It happened during a routine surveillance flight by a satellite meant to track space debris. Instead of mere fragments of metal, the image revealed something far more complex. A craft nestled deep within the sands, domed and armored with an unfamiliar alloy that shimmered even in the low light. The implications of this find rippled through global authorities, yet silence was mandated from the top. The truth was hidden behind false reports, disinformation campaigns, and a deliberate evacuation of information. The governments involved knew that what they had uncovered could change everything, perhaps even render the current space programs obsolete. But curiosity is a fire that refuses to be extinguished. Within these clandestine corridors, the scientists examined the alien technology with awe and a sinking suspicion that humankind was not alone, nor even the most advanced beings in the universe. The ships contained innovations, luminescent wiring that seemed to pulse with life, propulsion systems that defied classical physics, and control interfaces that responded intuitively to thought. There were whispers of experimental launches, tests of propulsion that bent the known laws of energy, experiments designed not merely to explore, but to push the boundaries of what's possible. The first test flights were covert, small and precise. A craft, nestled in the shadows, would ignite in a mysterious burst of light, streaking into the night sky before vanishing. These tests pushed the limits of human ingenuity and secrecy, creating a new layer of technology that was miles ahead of public space endeavors. The implications were staggering. Had these hidden technologies already begun to accelerate the space race, or were they changing its course altogether? Would the world be ready for the truth, or would revealing this knowledge plunge humanity into chaos? It was no longer just about exploration or scientific achievement. It had become a game of power, secrecy, and survival. Pieces of a puzzle that could unravel the fabric of human history lay hidden in the depths of concealed installations. Each discovery was a step toward the unknown, a road paved with innovation and the risk of revelation. As the scientists worked tirelessly to understand and replicate these alien technologies, a question loomed: were these creations merely tools, or could they hold the key to a new era of human existence? Meanwhile, afar, the world remained unaware. Governments kept tight lips, fabricating stories about old satellites or natural phenomena to explain the mysterious lights streaking across the night sky. But whispers of the secrets hidden beneath the sands grew stronger among those who dared to look closer, those who sensed that humanity was on the brink of a profound transformation. For every successful test, there was a silent acknowledgement that they were not alone, and perhaps never had been. And then, as if the universe itself was watching, a new wave of experimentation began, more daring, more confident. Experimental launches sent these advanced crafts into the unknown, sometimes into the very fringes of Earth's atmosphere, sometimes beyond. Each flight was a story of innovation cloaked in darkness, a testament to the human spirit's relentless drive to reach out and grasp the stars, yet, all under the strictest secrecy. But what if these hidden technologies had been accelerated? What if their integration into the broader space programs had been more rapid than publicly acknowledged? Would they have shortened the timeline of lunar missions? Could they have facilitated contact with other advanced civilizations lurking in the cosmic shadows? Or worse, could the knowledge have fallen into the wrong hands, unleashing a new kind of space race, one based not on exploration but dominance? As the night stretched into dawn, the silence persisted, yet beneath that calm surface lay a tempest of potential, danger, and hope. Each revelation about these clandestine ships and their revolutionary innovations further blurred the line between known science and cosmic mystery. The world's gaze was fixated on the sky, on the possibility of alien contact, unaware that the real answer lay buried deep beneath the sands, in technologies kept silent by those who dared to dream beyond the confines of visible reality. Would the truth ever come to light? Or would it remain a shadow cast by our own secrets, an echo of what humanity was willing to hide in pursuit of knowledge and power? The questions lingered, unanswerable and infinite, as the universe watched and waited for us to face the dawn of true discovery, or the end of all things, prompted by the silent, advanced technology that kept its secrets in the darkness. In the shadowed corridors of history, beneath the public triumphs and televised speeches, there lingered a silent tension, a secret so profound that its mere whisper could fracture alliances and reshape the entire fabric of international diplomacy. Imagine, if you will, a revelation that beyond the space race's glittering veneer, beyond the Cold War's fiery rhetoric, there were unseen figures. Cosmonauts whose existence was deliberately hidden from the world. Men and women, clandestine explorers of the cosmos, operating in the dark, their presence a silent testament to the lengths governments would go to conceal their deepest secrets. The Cold War was a game of shadows, a relentless tug-of-war where trust was a fragile, fleeting thing. The United States and the Soviet Union, locked in an ideological standoff, jibed and jabbed with missiles and propaganda, each desperate to outmaneuver the other. But beneath that surface, imagine the fallout if word of these secret cosmonauts had ever broken through the clandestine walls of secrecy. Could the diplomatic landscape have crumbled overnight? Would accusations of espionage turn into outright accusations of space-based sabotage? The very thought is staggering. If the world had learned that the Soviets kept silent explorers in orbit, men and women sent beyond the known, into the void, beyond the reach of international treaties, the balance of trust and power would have shuddered. The Americans, already paranoid about technological and military superiority, would have viewed this as a direct threat, a violation not only of space, but of the moral framework that governed international relations. The notion that one side could have secret astronauts in orbit, performing undisclosed experiments or even reconnaissance, would have stoked fears of covert espionage on a literally cosmic scale. In the quiet of these fears lay the seeds of catastrophic misunderstandings. Espionage is a language of secrets, cloaked operations, and suspicion. If U.S. intelligence had detected anomalies, unauthorized transmissions, unidentified spacecraft, was it merely technical failures? Or were these the silent footsteps of hidden cosmonauts, orchestrating a silent ballet in orbit, unseen by the naked eye? The potential for misinterpretation was enormous. Could a seemingly routine satellite interception spiral into diplomatic crisis? Could a false alarm be interpreted as hostile activity, prompting a rapid escalation toward military confrontation? The clandestine presence of these cosmonauts, if known, might have also forced a re-evaluation of international treaties, particularly those designed to regulate peaceful uses of space. The Outer Space Treaty, which aimed to prevent the militarization of space, would have faced stark new realities. Could two superpowers harbor operative astronauts in orbit, covertly monitoring and potentially sabotaging each other's assets? Would this lead to a clandestine arms race in space, where knowledge of hidden squads spurred a desperate effort to develop countermeasures or concealment techniques? Or might it have shattered the fragile trust that allowed for eventual cooperation, paving the way for the militarization of space with all its terrifying possibilities? The world's response, if such a secret had been exposed, would have been a mix of fear, outrage, and suspicion. Citizens would have demanded answers from their governments. Newspapers would have exploded with headlines, fueling paranoia and conspiracy theories. International bodies, which had already been strained by Cold War tensions, might have dissolved into chaos, with each side denouncing the other's treachery. A revelation of covert cosmonauts would have been a Pandora's box, unleashing fears about the extent of deception and the true nature of technological supremacy. Imagine the scenario. A quiet leak, a whistleblower revealing that in secret, in defiance of treaties and global expectations, men and women had been orbiting the Earth without public knowledge. Governments would scramble to dismiss or justify such claims. Yet, the evidence, communications intercepted, anomalies detected in space, would be impossible to ignore. Across the world, there would be a collective shudder, an understanding that what had been regarded as science fiction was, perhaps, just the surface of a far darker reality. In this chaos, alliances would be tested. The Americans, sensing betrayal and espionage at an unprecedented level, might have doubled down on their secrecy, escalating their own clandestine programs. Conversely, the Soviets, caught in the spotlight of suspicion, might have faced internal upheavals, an internal reckoning about the secrets they kept and the responses they dared to hide. The global narrative would shift from one of peaceful exploration to one of outright paranoia. Space as a new battleground of deception, where alliances dissolved and new conflicts emerged out of fear of unseen enemies. And as the dust of disclosure settled, the questions would linger. How many of these hidden cosmonauts had been lost? What experiments had they conducted beyond our knowledge? Had any missions been compromised or sabotaged? Could the true power of space espionage have extended far beyond the limits of our understanding, with these clandestine explorers functioning as silent agents of international intrigue and control? In the shadows of the cosmos, the truth would have become a weapon, wielded by those who understood the depths of what had been kept secret. But perhaps, most unsettling of all, was the realization that humanity's intellectual curiosity, its desire to explore and push beyond known boundaries, had been entangled with a web of deception and concealment. The universe, once a symbol of hope and discovery, would also symbolize the depths of human duplicity. The fear that what we don't see can hurt us the most, that our leaders might be orchestrating unseen operations just beyond the reach of our comprehension, would have become a universal anxiety. Because if the world had uncovered that these hidden cosmonauts had existed quietly in the darkness, it wouldn't just be a scandal. It would be a revelation of how fragile our trust truly is, how easily it can be shattered by the secrets we refuse to reveal. And in that fragile gap between trust and suspicion, the true implications of such a revelation would echo, not just through news cycles or diplomatic cables, but deep into the collective psyche of a world unprepared for the truth lurking beyond their sight. The cosmos, once a frontier of hope, might yet become the final battlefield of human deception, where the shadows hold secrets we are only beginning to fathom. In the dim glow of a flickering television set, the image is sharply outlined against a dark, shadowed room. The colors are vivid, almost surreal, heroic depictions of cosmonauts launching into star-streaked skies, brave pioneers standing atop the immense, barren plains of a vast Soviet landscape. The voice bursts forth, commanding and unwavering, praising the motherland's unbreakable progress, a narrative meticulously spun to elevate the Soviet spirit. Every image, every word, carefully curated to weave a story of invincibility and unyielding strength. Behind this polished facade lies a meticulously crafted machine, an operation that controlled perception with the precision of a master craftsman. The propaganda machine was not merely about spreading news or inspiring patriotism, it was about shaping reality itself. Every broadcast, every poster, every novel was designed to forge a singular truth, one that cast the USSR as an unstoppable giant soaring into the cosmos, bravely conquering the unknown, leaving the shame of defeat and the cracks in their ideology hidden beneath layers of fabricated heroism. As the camera lingers on a montage of Soviet space achievements, a voice whispers, almost like a ghost, reminding us that behind every portrait and propaganda piece was a complex web of deception. The space race, for all its grandeur on the outside, concealed an underlying fabric of secrets and lies. The Soviet Union, in its relentless pursuit of technical dominance, had relied heavily on controlled media to craft a narrative of unassailable greatness. Satellite images showed a meticulous choreography, images carefully assembled, stories spun to align with the political agenda rather than the truth. Yet, even within this immense machinery, cracks began to appear. Whispers of dissent, unofficial stories of failed launches, rumors of scientists and engineers silenced or disappeared. The myth had to be maintained, and so every failure was either concealed or twisted into a lesson of perseverance. The propaganda didn't just shape public perception. It created a fortress of insulation around the harsh realities the Soviet government preferred to keep hidden. The camera shifts, revealing a secret archive, hidden documents, faded photographs taken in darkened rooms, clandestine meetings between scientists and officials. These are the skeletons in the closet, the truths the regime sought to erase. What other secrets, the film asks, were buried beneath this propaganda facade? What stories of betrayal of the ideals they claimed to uphold? What failures were covered up in the shadow of national pride? The narrative delves deeper into how controlled media kept the truth submerged, drowning it in relentless tales of progress, of cosmonauts who were seen as godlike figures, heroes who defied the laws of nature. Propaganda posters ceiling high, depicting the worker and soldier as part of a divine collective effort. Schools taught a version of history that glorified their achievements while omitting the human costs, the sacrifices, the betrayals. It was a carefully designed reality, one that demanded unwavering allegiance and suppressed dissent within the borders of their citizens' consciousness. Information was a weapon, weaponized enthusiasm, patriotism, and fervor. The people consumed carefully curated stories, unaware of the truths that lay behind the curtain. Experiments in the dark, classified missions, projects that faltered and failed but were never acknowledged publicly. The narrative was that of limitless Soviet potential, of heroes who rose above adversity. But behind the scenes, the reality was far bleaker, a tale of ambition, treachery, and the desperate need to dominate. The film asks, lingering on a shot of an old, dusty control room, deserted now but once alive with the hum of machinery, where decisions that shaped history were made. What were the costs of maintaining this illusion? The citizens, fed a steady diet of fairy tales, believed in their glory. Yet the truth was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the faintest whisper of reality. When the truth finally seeped through, it often arrived silently, in hushed stories told behind closed doors, or in the rare leak that survived the purge. As dawn approaches, the story questions the lasting impact of the propaganda machine. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union, the echoes of their deception linger, unspoken truths buried deep within the collective memory of a generation. Their narratives, crafted with such precision, had created a mirror universe. One where heroism was magnified and failures were erased. The film's piercing voice ponders, what other secrets were hidden behind the facade? How extensive was this web of lies, and what remains undiscovered beneath the surface of what they chose to reveal? In a final, haunting shot, we see an old Soviet-era poster peeling at the edges, revealing the faded, forgotten images beneath, truths long suppressed, now exposed like scars beneath the skin of history. The propaganda machine had been powerful, relentless, and utterly calculated. It built a world where the lies became reality for the millions who believed. But beneath that surface, the truth waited, silent, waiting for its moment to emerge from the shadows. The question remains: what other stories, what other secrets, were hidden behind the grand, insidious facade of Soviet propaganda? And what would it take to finally unveil them? In the quiet whispers of history, the stories of those who dared reach for the stars often remain shrouded in shadows, their sacrifices buried beneath layers of secrecy and silence. The Soviet space program, once a symbol of relentless ambition and national pride, carried within its fabric a hidden tapestry of loss, deaths concealed, stories erased, heroes forgotten. And as the years unfurled, the long shadows they cast began to influence more than just the clandestine corridors of secretive agencies. They shaped the very course of space exploration itself. In the aftermath of those tragic episodes, a silence grew thick and oppressive. The Soviet Union's relentless drive to surpass the West in the space race was fueled by stories of progress, not tragedy. Yet beneath that veneer lay a hidden toll: lives lost, dreams shattered in the cold vacuum of space, and the haunting knowledge that acknowledging these losses might threaten national prestige. The secrecy surrounding these deaths became a suffocating shroud, preventing a transparent reckoning with the true costs of their ambitions. As subsequent missions unfolded, the impact was palpable, an unspoken caution, a subtle shift in the way risks were assessed and presented. The Soviet engineers and scientists, haunted by the ghost of past failures they couldn't openly mourn, often carried a formidable burden of guilt, the knowledge of what had been sacrificed, lurking just beyond the surface of official records. But without acknowledgement, there was little room for genuine learning, for understanding the true limits of human endurance and technological capability. Instead, the desire to maintain the illusion of infallibility pushed teams to undertake missions with an undercurrent of fear, a fear they dared not voice aloud. This atmosphere of secrecy gnawed at the fabric of the program's legacy. The stories of those who perished, cosmonauts loyal to a cause, pioneers venturing into the unknown, became whispered legends, hidden behind layers of propaganda and suppression. Their sacrifices, vital and tragic, were transformed into symbols of heroism, yet never fully honored. The potential heroes who could have inspired generations of scientists, engineers, and space explorers remained obscured in the shadows of silence. Their stories, if told openly, might have humanized the endeavor, fostering a deeper understanding of both the risks and the profound courage it takes to reach beyond our earthly boundaries. Could openness have changed the course of space exploration history? That question echoes through the corridors of time, stirring a sense of what might have been. Had the Soviet Union embraced transparency, acknowledging their losses openly, perhaps their space program could have grown more resilient, learning from failures without the weight of shame or cover-up. It might have fostered a culture of honesty, where risks were managed not through secrecy but through shared knowledge and collective resilience. In that environment, perhaps future missions, those bold ventures into the unknown, would have been approached with greater caution and scientific rigor, reducing tragedies born of desperation or concealment. The chilling truth remains that secrecy often stifles growth. By hiding the human cost, the Soviet space program inadvertently nurtured an environment where mistakes could be repeated and where the full spectrum of danger was hidden behind a facade of triumph. The long-term effects are felt still today, a legacy of unspoken loss that weighs heavily on the collective memory of humanity's quest to explore the cosmos. In an era where the silence about those unacknowledged sacrifices persists, questions of morality and progress intertwine. Do we honor progress by concealing the pain that fuels it? Or do we embrace transparency, accepting that in the acknowledgement of loss, we find the true measure of our humanity? These questions echo beyond the cold calculations of space agencies, reaching into the very core of what it means to strive for the stars, risking everything, risking everyone, for the faint hope of discovery. Perhaps, in the end, the stories of those who perished, those unseen and unsung, serve as a silent testament, reminding us that true progress is not measured solely by milestones reached but by the courage to face the truth, no matter how difficult. The long shadows cast by those losses linger, whispering the silent truth. That history, in its cruel honesty, demands acknowledgement. And only then can we hope to learn, to grow, and to forge a future where the price of exploration is honored and remembered, not hidden away, erased from the echoes they tried to silence forever. In the shadowed corridors of history, where the triumphs and failures of mankind are etched into the fabric of time, a different story was waiting to unfold. What if, behind the closed doors of secret agencies and clandestine meetings, truths were hidden so profound that the course of space exploration was forever altered? Perhaps the space race, a relentless quest to outdo and outshine, took a darker, more unpredictable path, veiled beneath layers of deception and suppressed discoveries. Imagine a world where, in the early 1960s, the United States and the Soviet Union were locked in an intense rivalry, but behind the public eye, both nations harbored secrets, technologies they dared not reveal, alliances formed in shadowed chambers, and discoveries that could overturn everything known. The Soviets, with their relentless pursuit, stumble upon a fragment of alien technology buried deep beneath the Siberian tundra, a relic unearthed during excavations for industrial expansion. Instead of sharing this breakthrough with their scientific community, they keep it under wraps, fueling their capabilities with mechanisms and insights far beyond human understanding. With such clandestine advancements, the Soviet space program accelerates wildly, achieving milestones that seem impossible: manned missions to Venus, moon bases established in the late 1960s, all hidden from the world. Meanwhile, in the United States, a different story unfolds. Suppressed by fear, political paranoia, and the desire to maintain the image of technological supremacy, certain key projects are deliberately slowed or diverted. Secret research labs develop clandestine propulsion systems, capable of reaching distant planets faster than the publicly acknowledged efforts. The American public remains unaware that scientists and engineers, under government orders, are working tirelessly on blueprints that could send humans beyond Mars, possibly even to the edges of our solar system. Hidden projects that aim to reach and colonize worlds that remain mere speculation in the light of day. Now consider the implications of these secrets. As the decade progresses, delays and accelerations thread through the timeline. The public witnesses the well-orchestrated launches, the Apollo missions, the lunar landing. Yet beneath these, an entire covert race unfolds. Some scientists whisper of breakthroughs in propulsion and life support, technology so advanced it feels almost supernatural. Mission control is shrouded in whispers of, what if our adversaries have already reached these distant worlds? Or worse, What if they possess methods of reaching them that we can only dream of? Every delay is met with the fear that the shadowy side of the race is lapping at our heels, gaining ground unseen. In this alternate universe, the United States might have reached the moon earlier, or at least a different part of it, thanks to hidden alien technological artifacts. Artifacts they discovered but refused to share. It's not just a victory of human ingenuity but a silent gamble, a clandestine chase for extraterrestrial secrets. Perhaps, in this reimagined race, the American astronauts landed on the lunar surface not in 1969 but a few years earlier, equipped with covert tech that made the achievement more spectacular but less understood by the public or even Congress. Yet, perhaps the most unsettling aspect is what these secrets imply for humanity's collective understanding of its place in the universe. If, behind closed doors, both superpowers are aware of alien influences, of technologies that could revolutionize life, or even threaten it, what is the true extent of what we have lost or gained? What if these undisclosed endeavors reached a point where clandestine alliances with alien entities were established, revealing a layered reality far beyond what we are told? The space race thus becomes not just a competition among nations but a battleground of secrets, where the stakes are the very fabric of human destiny. Would the United States have won this reimagined race under different circumstances? It's a question woven with shadows of doubt and hopes of truth. In one possible reality, the U.S. emerged victorious, not solely due to technological innovation, but because of cunning secrecy, clandestine treaties, and the exploitation of unknowable alien tech. The victory, however, was hollow, an illusion crafted in the dark, built upon foundations of half-truths and suppressed knowledge. The national pride that seemed so tangible was, in truth, a fragile veneer, hiding the uncomfortable truth that our greatest achievement was built on secrets we dared not share. In another scenario, the Soviet Union's relentless pursuit, fueled by hidden breakthroughs, might have led them to surpass the US entirely, establishing permanent bases on distant planets, colonizing the outer edges of the solar system, while the Western nations remained in the dark about the true extent of power their rivals had amassed. The race, then, was not a matter of who first set foot on the moon but who had the most mastery over unseen cosmic forces. Forces they kept secret to preserve their dominance and perhaps their survival. The narrative unfolds in a haunting dance through galaxies of what could have been, where the line between truth and deception blurs. As the decades pass in this shadowy universe, the world may never fully know the truth. Whether humanity's true victory was achieved or forever thwarted by those who kept secrets too dangerous to reveal. The space race, reimagined with hidden alliances and clandestine agendas, becomes less about exploration and more about survival, power, and the fears of the unknown. And in this dark tapestry, questions ripple outward. Did humanity ever truly choose to race for the stars, or was our journey manipulated by forces beyond our comprehension? Is the United States, in this alternate reality, the victor, or just the last to be blinded by its own shadows? And most profoundly, what does it say about us that the most crucial victories may never have been ours to claim fully, because they were stolen in silence? As the echoes of the race fade into the cosmic abyss, one truth remains clear. The future of humanity hinges not only on our ambition but on what shadows we dare to face, or choose to ignore. In the quiet moments between shadows, where secrets hide beneath layers of silence and misconception, a whisper grows louder, a faint but persistent hum of truth waiting to break free. The world, so often lulled into complacency by the cover stories spun from concealed agendas, begins to tremble at the edges of revelation. Potential leaks emerge like crackling sparks in a dark forest, threatening to ignite the smoldering embers of decades-old lies. Whistleblowers step out into the harsh light of day, risking everything: reputation, safety, even their lives, because the weight of what they carry is too heavy to bear alone. Their voices, once buried beneath years of fear and intimidation, now cut through the noise, demanding that the world listen. These brave individuals, often marginalized and dismissed, stand as a testament to the human desire for truth in a world built on concealment. And then, the fallout begins, across borders and boundaries, in the quiet corners of communities and the bustling corridors of power. As pieces of the puzzle start to surface, the fabric of accepted history unravels. What was once accepted as gospel now becomes a battlefield of conflicting narratives, each side desperate to control the narrative of what is uncovered. Imagine a digital landscape, trembling under the weight of leaked documents, clandestine recordings, and anonymous tips, each fragment a key to a vault long thought sealed shut. The algorithms that once protected secrets from prying eyes now falter, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of exposed truths. The screens flicker with revelations that threaten to shatter the carefully crafted illusions of authority. In the midst of this chaos, people begin to question everything: who they are, what they believe, what they've been told to forget. The narrative they clung to for comfort is suddenly exposed as a lie. Families mourn the truth about their histories, communities grapple with newfound realities, and nations are forced to confront their darkest chapters. But what if the world finally learned the full story? What if every hidden truth, every suppressed memory, was finally laid bare? Would it bring liberation or devastation? Would the collective psyche shatter under the weight of revelation, or would it forge a new path, one rooted in transparency and awakening? The potential knowledge locked away, centuries of conspiracy, manipulation, and outright deception, could redefine the core of human understanding. It could illuminate the shadows cast by power-hungry elites, expose the clandestine agreements that shaped the course of history, and unravel the complex web of lies spun around scientific discoveries and technological advances. Imagine the shockwaves rippling through society when the truth about our origins, our governments, or even our own identities is finally known. Across the globe, people contemplate the implications: fear, hope, anger, and curiosity intertwined. Is this revelation a blessing or a curse? Could it ignite a revolution of consciousness, inspiring a collective awakening to the reality of our true history? Or would it plunge humanity into chaos, unable to handle the weight of what has been hidden for so long? As history has shown time and again, the pursuit of truth is a double-edged sword. It can heal or hurt, liberate or enslave. When the veils are lifted, what we find can turn everything we thought we knew upside down. It reminds us that knowledge is power, power to empower or to enslave, to enlighten or to blind. In this moment of impending revelation, the threads of narrative tighten around us, pulling us toward an uncertain but inevitable horizon. The question is not just about discovering what was hidden, but about what we will do once we see it, a collective choice to accept the uncomfortable, the painful, the enlightening truth. And in that acceptance lies the potential for transformation or destruction, a pivotal point in the story of human consciousness. What if the world finally learned the full story? Would we emerge from the shadows stronger, wiser, more compassionate? Or would we fracture under the weight of our own secrets? The answer remains hidden, lurking in the dark corners of possibility, waiting for that final turn of the page, the moment when the truth can no longer be contained. The echoes of what once was, the voices of those who dared to reveal, continue to resonate, whispering that the time is near, but are we ready to hear it? In the flickering shadows of history's forgotten corridors, there lies a truth too often buried, too inconvenient to be brought to light. Imagine, if you will, a world where the secrets of the past were laid bare, where the veneer of concealment was stripped away and the uncomfortable realities came rushing forth with unrelenting force. What would be different? How would history, our shared story, transform under the weight of honesty? And what lessons, irrefutable and searing, could we learn from these revelations? In the quiet hours of reflection, it becomes clear that secrecy has always been a double-edged sword, protecting some, destroying others, distorting the very fabric of truth itself. The stories of heroism wreathed in shadows often carry a hidden cost. Courage, in the dark, can be a solitary act, carved out of necessity and fear, yet celebrated as an undiluted virtue. But what happens when that heroism is intertwined with lies? When the sacrifices made in silence push the boundaries of morality? When the line between right and wrong is blurred by those who decide what must remain unseen? The true cost of secrecy is not just the withheld truth but the erosion of trust, the disillusionment of generations, and the corrosion of integrity that follows. Imagine, now, a scenario where these secrets, these carefully guarded lies, are suddenly exposed. What if the world learned, for instance, that critical events in history were orchestrated behind closed doors by powers that deemed their agenda more important than truth itself? Would society crumble under the weight of that revelation? Or would it, perhaps, emerge stronger, more resilient, embracing the uncomfortable reality as a necessary step toward genuine understanding? Our entire narrative hinges on the lessons we choose to accept or deny. The past is not fixed, it is a living dialogue, responsive to how willing we are to confront what lies beneath the surface. In such a hypothetical, transparency becomes the new morality. It challenges us to reconsider what it means to be honest, to be brave, not just in words, but in actions. The acts of heroism that history has handed us might shift in meaning. No longer are they mere stories to admire from afar. They become lessons on vulnerability, accountability, and the human cost of moral compromise. The idea of heroism transforms. No longer is it about solitary deeds performed in secrecy, but about collective sacrifices, shared truths, and the courage to face the consequences of what really happened. Reflecting on this, we understand that society's progress depends on the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Knowledge is power, but only when wielded with honesty. The chains of history's silence have kept us comfortable, yet they have also kept us blind to the realities that shape our present struggles. The lesson here is crystal clear. Denial and concealment only deepen the wounds inflicted by unintended mistakes and injustices. To heal, to truly learn, we must confront the shadows, those dark corners where the truth has long lurked, without fear of its consequences. What would that change look like? Imagine a world where every questionable act, every moral compromise and political deception, was put under an honest light. The facade would crack, chaos might ensue, but from those ashes, something more resilient and authentic could emerge. Society might rebuild itself on the foundation of shared accountability, a collective acknowledgement of human imperfection and resilience. It's a sobering thought. Truth is often painful, but it is also liberating. In the end, what these secrets teach us is rooted in the necessity of moral clarity. We carry the weight of our history, and with that comes responsibility. To remember the lessons of silence, of concealment, and of cowardice is to understand that transparency is not just a moral ideal but a pivotal act of rebellion against the forces that seek to control narratives. When history reveals its hidden chapters, we are called to be brave enough to listen and courageous enough to learn. This hypothetical exposes a fundamental truth: that history, in all its complexities, is a tapestry woven from truth and lies, heroism and betrayal, light and shadow. What matters most is our choice in how we interpret it. Do we accept the sanitized version, convenient and comforting, or do we dare to see the raw, unvarnished truth? Because in that stark honesty lies the only path toward genuine justice and understanding. As we ponder these possibilities, we are reminded that the future is shaped by what we dare to uncover today. The past's secrets, if ever fully revealed, could redefine our moral compass, challenge our political paradigms, and inspire us to build a society rooted in transparency and accountability. The lesson is clear. History will only be truly ours when we are honest enough to face it. And perhaps, in doing so, we may finally forge a path toward a future free of the shadows that once obscured our way.